Good morning and welcome to our 12th of July 2-hour special from the historic town of Carrickfergus on the shores of Belfast Lough here in Northern Ireland. Today we'll be bringing you live coverage of the Orange Order parades and showcasing the talented bandsmen and women, both young and old. But first, let's get your latest GB News headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Good morning, I'm Sophia Wensler from the GB Newsroom. At just gone 10 o'clock, your headlines. 4 migrants have died in the English Channel after their boat capsized, according to the French Coast Guard. More than 60 people were reported to be on the boat off the northern French coast near Boulogne. Latest Home Office figures show 419 people made the journey across the Channel from France to the UK in 6 boats on Tuesday. It suggests an average of 70 people per boat, taking the provisional total for 2024 to just over 14,000. In other news, violent prisoners could be released early under new government measures to tackle overcrowding in prisons. The Justice Secretary is set to announce emergency plans amid fears jails will run out of space within weeks. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has said that the shocking crisis is worse than he had first feared. It is expected that prisoners could receive early release after 40% of their sentences served. Currently, it stands at 50%. But former Justice Minister Sir Robert Buckland says Labour can't just blame the previous government.
The government just merely points the finger at its predecessor and doesn't come up with other ideas about how to reduce the population awaiting trial, the remand population, then I think it will have missed an opportunity. And I think it's important that viewers know that we should be looking very carefully to make sure that serious violent criminals should not be released. And anybody on this scheme shouldn't be a domestic abuser or a stalker or an offender of that nature, because we should be maintaining confidence and making sure the public aren't put at risk.
In the US, President Joe Biden has vowed to fight on despite 2 major gaffes at the NATO summit and a growing number of Democrats calling on him to stand aside. Speaking at the Washington event last night, he mistakenly referred to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as President Putin before correcting himself.
Ukraine will prevail in this war, and we'll stand with them every single step of the way. That's what the compact says, loudly and clearly. And now I want to hand it over to the President of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on...
Speaking just a short while later, while taking questions from journalists, he mixed up the names of Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be Vice President. I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
But despite his 2 mistakes, Sir Keir Starmer has defended Joe Biden's leadership of the NATO summit. The Prime Minister, who earlier insisted Mr Biden was not senile and was on good form, faced questions about the president's mental ability just moments after the US leader's gaffe.
I was with him last night. We spent best part of an hour together, covering a lot of ground. We've been through 2 days of this council and come to a very good outcome. He's led through all of that, spoken in every session, pulled people together, and we got a good outcome, and I think he should be given credit for that.
In other news, a taxi's been seized as part of a manhunt after 2 suitcases containing human remains were left on Bristol's Clifton Suspension Bridge. Police say it's their immediate priority to trace their main suspect and have released a description of someone seen on CCTV last night. He travelled to the bridge via taxi and dropped off the luggage. There's been no detail so far about potential victims or a motive. Processions are taking place across Northern Ireland and other parts of the UK to mark the anniversary of the Battle of the Boyne. Tens of thousands of loyal order members and 600 marching bands are to take to the streets for the annual 12th of July festivities. It comes after the traditional burning of bonfires at an estimated 300 locations in loyalist neighbourhoods across the region last night. And Prince Harry has accepted the Pat Tillman Award for service following a major backlash from fellow veterans. The award is named after a US war hero who died in Afghanistan, and his mother criticised the decision to honour the Duke of Sussex. Before the ceremony, more than 75,000 people signed a petition protesting against the decision to give the award to the Prince. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to GB News' coverage of the 12th of July. And today we're also humbled to embark on a fascinating journey through history, focusing on our Presbyterian ancestors and the pivotal events that followed the Glorious Revolution. Well, the 12th of July is a celebration of our country as a whole, and it's a day to acknowledge the importance and impact of the Williamite Wars on the future of the United Kingdom and Ireland, and even further afield to what is now the United States of America. So make sure you stay with us throughout the next 2 hours. We have a lot more to come on all of that. And now we're privileged to be joined once again by our esteemed County Down historian, Dr. Gavin Hughes. Gavin, it's wonderful to have you with us again
It's a pleasure
today.
to be here, Arlene.
And the weather's been pretty good, okay, today?
So far, it's great. There's a nice stiff breeze coming off the Belfast Loch, and actually, that's probably going to be a good day to blow any nasty rain clouds away.
Well, I hope so. And it's not going to be too warm for the parade as well.
That's it.
Yeah. And Gavin, why do we celebrate the Battle of the Boyne? Why is it important, not just for us in Northern Ireland, but right across the UK?
Well, the important thing about the Boyne is that it is seen as being the enshrinement of civil and liberty for all. Religious liberty, civil liberty, and especially that's what we are celebrating today with the orange on display here, not simply in Carrickfergus, but throughout the province and elsewhere.
There are 18 destinations across Northern Ireland. We've already seen some footage from Sophie Reefer in Liverpool, and hopefully catch up with her a little later as well. We've some footage as well from Glasgow. It's celebrated very much in Scotland as well, isn't that the case?
It is, that's right. And here in Carrickfergus, this is part of what's known as the East Antrim Combine, which is basically 9 districts which will be parading through the town all day.
Well, that's great, and I look forward to all of your commentary later on. The parades will start a little later on. Everybody's starting to assemble here in Carrickfergus at the minute. We've seen some bands and lodges going to the assembly point, and we've been listening to them. But we're also joined, I'm delighted to say, throughout the morning by our Northern Ireland correspondent, the wonderful Dougie Beattie, and who else but Charlie Lawson, who I believe is in Carrickfergus Castle at the moment.
We are indeed, Arlene. We've arrived in Carrickfergus Castle. What do you think of it?
I think it's remarkable. I'm ashamed that I haven't been here that many times. But so, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Dougie, tell us why we're here in Carrickfergus particularly. Give us a wee bit of the history.
Well, it was back in 1690 that King William actually arrived here. Schomberg had already taken over this castle from the Jacobites. It was important because this was a deep water port. And Lorna, if you could just get over this wall here, and you see we're actually on the ramparts here of the castle, and you just look over, you can actually see where King William landed in 1690. He came in here. Schomberg had already established a base here, and this is where it was said actually at one point that there was that many ships here that it would go the whole way. You could have walked across to Hollywood from Carrickfergus. That is some fleet that came in here.
Extraordinary, really, when you think about it. You know what I mean? You know, we're talking about D-Day and all that stuff this year, and but I believe so. You could hardly see across to Hollywood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Amazing.
Yeah, and if you look here at the cannons and stuff, I mean, what do you think of them?
Well, I think they've done a great job here in Carrickfergus, and you look at this. I mean, what a dominating place to be. You know what I mean? And if you got this on your side, you're laughing.
Well, it is. I mean, when you actually look at Belfast Loch and you see this just juts out into the sea, and you can see why Belfast Loch, of course, a deep water port, very, very important for those big warships of the 1600s. And of course, if you have this, you dominate everything
Everywhere
that is around you.
Yeah, no, it's great, and great to be here. Actually, don't come here often enough, so we're looking forward to the day.
Well, the castle, of course, was built by the Normans, John de Courcy, and the name of Carrickfergus was actually named after Fergus, who was wrecked upon the rocks here. And you can see just how they've built this on those very rocks and why it is so important as a military and strategic point. But we'll be with you through the morning and catching up with some of the people going along the way.
Thanks very much, Dougie. And of course, Gavin's going to be with us today. It's great to have you with us again. And today we're going to take a tour from Ulster to America, the migration of people after the Glorious Revolution and indeed throughout the 18th century to America was hugely significant in terms of the country that we see today. So, Gavin, there were different presidents came from Ulster, and of course one that's very particular to this area is Andrew Jackson.
Well, indeed. In fact, he was, although he was born in America, his father came from a small village which is not very far from here called Bonnybefore. And they emigrated in the Revolutionary period. He was captured by the British, and effectively his father had died, and his mother tended to the young Andrew and his brother whilst they were in British prison, effectively caught cholera fever, and effectively because of that, apparently Jackson had an undying hatred of the British.
Oh dear.
Yes. In fact, that's whenever he became, in 1812, became Major General of the American Forces, and at the Battle of New Orleans against another Irish general who actually effectively he beat. And effectively Andrew Jackson is known for being this great American general, and of course also very distinguished president as well.
Which just shows we celebrate everybody that comes from here.
It does,
even
yes.
if he hated the British.
Absolutely.
Well, now let's turn to the story of the links between Ulster and America. What many people don't understand is that actually, or realise, is that the future of Ulster and indeed America was driven by the events that followed the Williamite Wars in the late 17th century. Today we get to tell you the story of how Ulster Scots Presbyterians faced religious persecution, political exile and economic hardship. We now look at how the events of 1690 not only went on to shape the future of Ulster, but right across the world. The Great Migration of 1718 profoundly shaped American society, bringing both cultural, heritage and pioneering spirit. In the UK, it solidified the Protestant presence in Ulster and influenced political developments, and at the same time formed a catalyst that would undoubtedly encourage many to leave Ulster behind them. Our Northern Ireland correspondent Dougie Beattie has taken a fascinating tour to delve into the roots of how and why the Ulster Scots people began their historic journey.
Fell about, the lamb has died.
Scotland's relationship with England has always been uneasy. And from the beginning of the 17th century, lowland Scots were planted into Ulster. This was to reawaken Ulster's economy after Elizabeth I's war with the Irish Earls.
It's a very difficult period, particularly for Presbyterian or Covenanter groups within Scotland, and they experienced great hardship, particularly under the Stuarts, under Charles II and then under James II. And the government is arrayed against them. You see them having to worship out in the heather, and they're hunted and they're harried in the heather by government forces because they won't conform to the establishment, they won't conform to the established church.
James II initially had the backing of those who controlled the lands north of the Humber, and in 1667 a Scotch-Dutch regiment was raised. But the monarch's actions would anger his allies, and it wasn't long before those armies would be used against him.
When James II comes to the throne, and there's an initial rebellion against him by the Duke of Monmouth, and it's brutally crushed by James II and people like commanders like Percy Kirk, who will go on to liberate Londonderry after the siege. He is brought back, and his regiment really do go after the rebels. But James proves himself to be a tyrant, and as a consequence of that, you see the political establishment, the military commanders, the church leaders all coming together right across England and Scotland, and the invitation is issued to William, Prince of Orange, and his wife Mary to come and take the British throne, and the balance of power shifts from just being confined to that of the monarch or the monarchy to the people in Parliament.
A now deposed King James travels from France to Ireland. His Jacobite army must find a deep-water port to gain a passage to Scotland. But the lowland plantation Scots put up resistance, allowing William's army time to move into Ulster and ruin James's plans.
So he moves very quickly with his troops north, but there are pockets of resistance, and those are largely of those planter stock, those, if you like, Ulster Scots personalities, those families that have grown up over 2 generations and beyond. And they hold places like Enniskillen, Londonderry, they make stands in Killalay and Dromore. They hold out long enough for William to supply troops and reinforcements from the rest of the British Isles. And the war then for the Glorious Revolution, or to secure the Glorious Revolution, will take place in Ireland.
England to catch is brave.
That's the first of our little packages looking at the Ulster migration going over to America. And Gavin Hughes, the historian, is with me today. And Gavin, Dougie, speaking about that migration, how significant was that?
Do you know, in considering how important those 30 years after the Boyne and after the Williamite Wars with America as well, right up to 1720, we have one letter from James Logan, who came from Lurgan, but he was actually provincial secretary to the state of Pennsylvania, and he actually says about how he wants to have Ulster Scots there in Pennsylvania to defend this new colony. As he said, he thought it would be prudent to have the men who had so bravely defended Londonderry and Enniskillen in case of disturbance. And that kind of says about the kind of mentality of the people who are coming from this part of the world to go to the new world with new ideas, new ways of thinking, to carve out for themselves a way of doing things that had possibly
And we're
not
hearing
been
the bands that are assembling. The parade actually doesn't start off in proper terms until 11 o'clock, but the bands are coming around here to assemble, so we're in a fabulous
We are
point.
in a very good position
We're in a
here.
very good position, but we're going to now go and look at our second report, and in that we follow a pivotal moment in the Ulster Scots migration when the first organised exodus occurred from Londonderry and Coleraine in Northern Ireland, leaving for the New World.
On April 18th, 1689, the Jacobites laid siege to the city of Derry. It lasted for 105 days and left 8,000 dead. It is known that even children were involved in the fighting, and one young man would write his place in history.
James MacGregor is known as the Moses of the Scots-Irish. He was born in Magilligan in 1677. Now, we know very little about his family. We know his father was a Captain David MacGregor, probably a yeomanry captain. But during the siege of Londonderry, he, his father, his mother, his brother and sister were all in the city. He becomes notable in the city because he is said to be the boy, 12 years of age, who fires the cannon from the top of St Columb's Cathedral when he sees the ships coming up the river, the Mountjoy, and the 2 other ships which have broken the boom.
Over the next 9 years, the civil and religious freedoms that so many had fought for were now being denied by church and state.
For Presbyterians in this era, life had become very difficult at the beginning of the 18th century. The Test Act was passed. Now, this really was penal laws against the Presbyterians. And the Presbyterians saw this as betrayal. They had fought for the Williamite Wars, they had supported the government, and now the government was banning them. Presbyterian marriages, Presbyterian funerals were banned, children were declared illegitimate, they had to pay tithes to the Church of Ireland, public office was closed to them, and so many Presbyterians felt aggrieved. They wanted difference, they wanted to get out of this.
Many of those in Ulster saw America as an opportunity to have a new way of life and the religious and civil opportunities that they yearned for. Their leader and pastor was James MacGregor.
Now, what did they take with them? They take with them their spinning wheels, they take with them flax seed, they take seed potatoes. These things will be of benefit to them. All plans are arranged. But one of the saddest things that locally is what we call the living wakes. There were no dead people, but they might as well be dead. That was the night you left. Your family would come, your friends, your neighbours, and they would gather. and there would be hymns singing, there would be music. It wouldn't be a happy occasion.
5 ships would leave from Coleraine and Londonderry, and at the mouth of the Foyle River, Colmore Fort would be the last sight they would have of Ireland. A new world and a new adventure now lay ahead.
Well, of course, as well as parades here in Northern Ireland, and we're hearing the bands assemble here in Carrickfergus, parades are taking place across the UK. And last Saturday, our camera crew were in Glasgow to witness the parade there. Let's have a look at some of that footage if we can. There are 4 parades that happen in Scotland, of course, and Glasgow is the one that we were at, and the guest speaker in Glasgow was Carla Lockhart, who's a newly minted MP here from Northern Ireland, and she was re-elected MP for Upper Bann, and she was the guest speaker in Glasgow at the weekend. And there are some great bands on the march there in Glasgow, along with lodges, of course, as well. The 12th in Scotland is before the big day itself, of course. This is the big day itself, and to allow those who want to travel over to Northern Ireland to come at any visiting from Scotland today, won't there, Gavin?
There will be. There's a lot of Scottish visitors and guests over here in Carrickfergus today as well.
Yeah. And in Belfast. They love going to Belfast,
of course, yes. Yeah.
And we just had the Imperial Orange Council take place in Enniskillen last week. Tell us about that.
Well, basically, the Imperial Grand Council is the World Organisation for Orangism. It's a triennial conference which basically includes people from Australia, New Zealand, Ghana, Togo, through America, Canada, throughout the world. And so basically, it's a hugely important and feather in the cap for Enniskillen, basically, in a lovely part of the world, obviously, Arling.
Well, it's my part of the world, as you know, and it has been a wonderful week. They had a parade on Sunday to our local cathedral there, and they've been meeting all week and enjoying the beautiful tourism venue that Enniskillen and the Fermanagh is.
Yes.
But Dougie Beattie has been looking at how the Glorious Revolution has not only changed Britain but also America, and he travelled to Boston and followed the historical route of the people aboard 5 ships that left Ulster seeking a new life across the Atlantic.
Presbyterians were not as tied down as they are today, I think, with rules. The church was the church, the Sabbath was the Sabbath, but outside that, they enjoyed their music. They liked their fiddle playing, they liked the violin, they even liked a wee bit of dancing. And we're told locally that they were fond of a wee bit of poaching. It wasn't against the law to have a wee drink now and again. And they were a happy people. They were a God-fearing, hard-working, and, you know, they were a rough people in many ways. They weren't delicate in that sense, but they were the sort of people who would survive well in America.
This really was the tale of 2 cities. To steal a quote, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And when the 5 ships reached the New World, they really did hope that the worst of times were behind them. They had faced high seas, the potential for piracy, starvation and disease. The 5 ships would not only bring resourceful people, but political thought. And unbeknown to those on board, their actions in Ireland had already caused unrest in the New World.
Particularly those Ulster Scots personalities in the 17th century, those tens of thousands of people who migrate to what becomes the United States, those ideas, those theological principles, those political ideas all travel with them. So it's a migration not just of people, but of principles and beliefs. And that goes on to form the bedrock of what becomes the United States.
During the Williamite Wars in 1689, when James II is sort of overthrown and all the Derry and Londonderry fighting starts happening, we get word of that here in New England. And what that causes here is another revolt where New Englanders rise up and they oust Edmund Andros. They put our former governor, Simon Bradstreet, back in control, and we sort of reestablish the Massachusetts Bay Colony. None of that could have happened without the Williamite Wars and without what happened in Londonderry, especially with the ousting of James II.
At first, the Puritans were uncertain about their new arrivals and their perceived lack of conservative values. They soon found common ground, though, in their quest for religious freedom.
And of course, the Puritans in 1630 were fleeing, a lot of them, from Denmark because they had been ousted for religious persecution from England. So from very early on, especially with Andros in 1689, what you see here is all of these people that had been connected banding together because it is this anti-corruption sentiment, which has always been purely New England.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Not the most summery of days, it has to be said. Cloudy and cool, some showery rain, but there will be some brighter weather around, and that's more than can be said for the weather we experienced a few days ago. And actually some sunshine is starting to appear across parts of central and western Scotland, Northern Ireland, southern parts of the UK as well, but also quite a number of showers across the map and a cloudy zone across Wales into the Midlands, northern England, where it's going to feel especially cool with some outbreaks of rain continuing. A cool breeze down the North Sea, 15, 16 Celsius here, 20 Celsius in the south. But as those temperatures rise, well, there is the chance of some sharp showers across parts of Devon and Cornwall, particularly, say, around Dartmoor, Exmoor, for example. Large rainfall amounts in a short space of time, but these will be very hit and miss. Some places will avoid them entirely. Then we've got this cloudier zone through parts of the Midlands, northern and eastern England, outbreaks of rain continuing here and there. Northern Ireland, much as Scotland, a largely dry and bright afternoon, but some outbreaks of rain will affect the northwest. And again, temperatures suppressed for the time of year, most places looking at below average temperatures. Now, the cloudy and drizzly zone across central parts will tend to sink south overnight, and actually it is a mostly cloudy night, but there will be some clear spells here and there, particularly in the south, southwest Scotland, Northern Ireland. And temperatures a little lower compared with some of the nights we've experienced this week, with lows of 9 to 12 Celsius typically. We start Saturday with some dreary weather across eastern parts, especially northeast England, southeast Scotland. A lot of low cloud here, outbreaks of light rain and drizzle. Elsewhere, the skies do brighten, the sun comes through, but there'll also be a scattering of showers, particularly towards the southwest, South Wales, Northern Ireland. These showers will be heavy where they do occur, but they'll be hit and miss. And away from the showers, feeling pleasant enough in the sunshine.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A87 is closed in both directions south of Sconser after an accident. In Greater Manchester, Todmorden Road in Littleborough is closed because of an accident. Train services are suspended between Carmarthen and Swansea because of a signalling problem. Buses replaced trains between Cardiff Central and Radda, with trains diverting via Llandaff because of an obstruction on the line. In London, Kentish Town Road is closed by Camden Town Station for emergency gas repairs, and Victoria Park Road in Hackney is closed because of subsidence. In Surrey, the A24 remains closed northbound from Ockley to Leatherhead after a large diesel spill on Tuesday, and in Cornwall, the A38 is closed in both directions after a vehicle hit the railway bridge between the Twelfth roundabout and Tideford. Roads also been closed west of the Carkill roundabout towards there. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Welcome back to beautiful Carrickfergus, and the weather's really holding up well for us here as we celebrate the 12th of July. We thought, Gavin and I thought we'd have a little chat about Carrickfergus, the town itself, and of course we have a royal connection here, don't we, Gavin?
We most certainly do. In the new Duke of Cambridge
yes.
has been recently created
It was actually on his wedding day. He was given Baron Carrickfergus. And so he's Baron Carrickfergus, Duke of Cambridge, and of course now the Prince of Wales. So it's lovely to have that royal link, isn't it?
It is. And to be quite honest, there's something wonderful about Carrickfergus. I mean, sort of the fact that we are in such a historic town with a heritage that goes back at least 800 years, founded by the Anglo-Norman knight John de Courcy, who came over in the first wave of the Normans with Strongbow, and effectively came from Somerset and decided, whilst all the other Normans were carving out little empires down in the south, he decided, right, I'm going to go up to Ulster. And he builds this at the tail end of the 12th century, 1177 or so. And then this develops into a very, very strong medieval town, effectively becoming sort of the actual fortified town of Ulster. Before Londonderry,
yeah, it had walls. It had walls, didn't it?
Well,
we always talk about the walls of Londonderry, but of course Carrickfergus
had walls too. Which, if anybody comes to visit Carrickfergus, some of them, the 17th century walls are still standing. And in fact, where we are actually positioned here today is where Sir Arthur Chichester's great big Jacobean mansion Joymount was, and this part of the area is still known as Joymount, and there's a Joymount link, and of course this goes into Scotch Quarter, which tells you where the Scotch, or the Scots folk were living, right by the shoreline. Irish Quarter at the West Gate was just down by the castle there. So basically you have the whole of Ulster society, English, Scots, Irish, all living in Carrickfergus and getting, basically, making their livings and making their ways right in this town as well.
Well, as we heard earlier from Dougie, of course, it's where King William arrived in Ireland. In 1689 or 1690?
1690. Just by there, by the old pier by the castle, that's where King William landed. Of course, Schomberg, the Duke of Schomberg, had arrived here previously and besieged the town and took it from the Jacobites. But William comes here and then proceeds from here to Belfast. The marvellous thing about the Carrickfergus on a day like today, the very first Twelfth was held here in 1823 with just 3 lodges. Well, today, of course, we have 60 lodges and 40 bands parading.
And that's just this, as you explained earlier. How many districts did you say are here?
There are 9 districts here.
9 districts here today.
So we're some of them are very small districts, and some like Larne are quite big.
Good. OK, well, as well as 18th century links, and we've been talking a lot about those today, there are more recent reasons to celebrate with our United States friends. In June 1942, an elite American Army regiment was formed here in Carrickfergus. It remains the only US military unit ever founded on foreign soil. And I hope Dougie and Charlie are both at the Museum of the American Rangers just outside Carrickfergus. Let's see what they're up to.
Yes, we are, Arlene. Yes, we're outside the Andrew Jackson and Rangers Museum. You can see it there right along. And of course, as you said, they were formed here. They were based here. Tell us a bit about what you know of them, Charlie.
Well, it was only about a year ago. My good friend Mel said, did you realise the American Rangers were formed here in Carrickfergus? And I was completely stumped and sort of said, why in the name of Jesus are we here? You know, I mean, do you know why they suddenly arrived in Carrickfergus before they went off to D-Day and all that? Carry on.
Well, there was a lot of American regiments based here.
But I mean, I remember down Castle Archdale way down Fermanagh there was people, but I never thought of Carrickfergus, so it's great to be here.
Yes, and not only are we at the museum, we can't actually go in because, well, it's the 12th of July, but we have, if you just get a look at this, Lauren, just go ahead, we have, to float about today in, we have a beautiful...
Willie's Jeep, or Willis?
A Willis Jeep from 1944. Belongs to a good friend of mine, Derek Beattie, and it is pristine.
And this is our transport for today, which is a real privilege. I've only ever seen them in the movies, so it's nice to be in one.
So we'll be buzzing past you, further going back into the town to pick up some of the people that are sitting waiting on the parade coming, and we'll be doing that in the next 5 minutes.
Good. See you later. Thanks for all of that. And Gavin, they were at Andrew Jackson's cottage there, homestead.
Yes.
How important is it that we here in the UK understand those historic ties between ourselves and the USA?
Well, we often talk about the special relationship, Arlene, about Britain and Ireland and America, but we often think that there's the Irish-American identity is only one thing.
Yeah.
But of course, the original Irish-American identity is actually something completely different. And that just shows you how identity can change over the course of centuries. And the fact that we have had such an important relationship, especially from this small part of the world, with America. And of course, as shown by the American influence during the Second World War and coming here, and this actually being their European land base and headquarters before D-Day. And as we've seen there about the 1st Ranger Battalion, founded at Bonnie before, and the Sunnylands camp, those men were here before they went and assaulted Pont de Hoc on D-Day on the 6th of June. Scale those cliffs and then find that the battery that they were attacking had actually... You kind of think that all starts... Those lads were around this very area.
Yeah, and of course Eisenhower was here. He was in Enniskillen, and he then went from here to D-Day. It's a wonderful link to have. And I was trying to say, it's not the historic links of 1700, 1800, but it's those links then, Second World War.
That's right.
And right up until today.
Right up to the day. And you can actually see, of course, that the American consulate, apart from France, the very second one was in Belfast, and that just says it all.
Well, we're now going to take a look at how the Ulster Scots moved on, I hope, from here in Ulster to Boston and then on to Worcester, continuing their quest for settlement in America. Not only had people misjudged their religion, but they'd also misjudged the gifts that they brought with them. Let's have a look.
Worcester lies about 40 miles west of Boston. It's known as the heart of the Commonwealth. But back in the 1700s, it was no more than a frontier's village.
So you would have to travel from Boston down the Indian Path, Indian Paths were only about this wide. They were only a foot wide. They weren't very large. You would be single file. Horseback, you would be single file. There was not enough room for a stagecoach.
The unannounced arrival of the Scots-Irish was scorned upon by the establishment, and as a result, they were split into 3 groups. Among those in the Worcester placement was the Young family. The oldest was 95, and he had brought the first seed potatoes to America, that at first was greeted with suspicion.
The Governor Shute was his name. He got really upset because he saw all these people arriving in Boston and he didn't know what to do. So he decided he was going to divide them into 3 groups and send them to 3 different places to reinforce populations because of the Indian attacks. So he sent 200 people to Maine, 200 people to Londonderry, New Hampshire, and 200 people to Worcester. When they get here in Worcester, the people that were already here, about 200 of them, and they were upset because they didn't like these people because they were different and they had different clothing, they spoke different, but they had gifts of the potato and the spinning wheel, and the Congregationalists were also afraid of that potato and they threw it away. So it took a couple of seasons before they realized that they could eat the potato. They were trying to eat the tubers and the leaves, which didn't work out, right? That's not good. Poisonous. So eventually they figured out how to eat the potato, and it became a very sustainable fruit or vegetable in New England, and a lot of potato farms are in Maine.
The hostilities towards the families in Worcester would see them being forced to move on, and they would rejoin their countrymen further north.
The people in Worcester tried to drive the Scots out of here. Get out of my town. It was pretty much, they burned their church down, and they did whatever they could to drive them away, and a lot of them founded Pelham and Rutland and Colebrook Springs to the west of us, and that's where the potato farms are in Massachusetts.
So we've been speaking about people leaving Ulster to go to America, but of course Dr. Gavin Hughes is with me this morning to talk about the historical context of all of this. Gavin, a lot of people came to Carrickfergus as well because we're at the very edge of Ulster here, aren't we?
We most certainly are. And indeed, funnily enough, with the American links as well, during the 7 Years' War, a group of people came to Carrickfergus who were definitely unwarned. Ships were seen in the bay from the French.
Do you ever want to see the French coming?
Certainly not when there are 600 troops led by General Francis Thurot. They land at Kilroot, which we can just see at that, and they march from Kilroot towards Carrickfergus. They are stopped actually pretty much where we are sitting here at Joymount. The troops from the castle are mobilised, the 67th Regiment by Lieutenant Colonel Jennings. They rush up to the gate here, try and hold the French back. But this is February 1760, 21st. The French break through here, the British fall back, until they're eventually pushed right back into the castle. They have no supplies, so basically they end up firing the buttons from their uniforms to try and hold the French off. The French effectively take Carrickfergus and they hold it for 6 days. And what they do is Thurot basically says, right, if you don't give us the stores and refit our ships, we will burn Carrickfergus and then we'll burn Belfast. So supplies are hurriedly sent from Belfast to Carrickfergus. Thurot and the French sail away, where they're actually ambushed by a Royal Naval squadron at the Isle of Man, and everything
Thank goodness
right. For the Royal Navy.
It was ever thus.
It was ever thus.
So we're seeing some footage of the bands assembling, and the parade starts at 11 a.m. and we're very much looking forward to watching it here at Joymount in Carrickfergus. But before that, we're going to have a little break now, and then we'll come back to see more of our GB News live coverage of the 12th of July.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
The Royal Academy's annual exhibition has returned for the 256th time to Brighton in the summer holidays. It's the world's oldest open submission exhibition. Anyone can enter work to be considered for inclusion. I'm joined now by art critic JJ Charlesworth for his verdict. What is your verdict?
My verdict is you should go and see it. You are confronted with many things of varying quality, selected by artists, and you very much, instead of being given something to you that's supposed to be good, you have to make your own decision.
I went along yesterday, and I personally did see some pictures on the wall that I thought were absolutely stunning. I'm going to mention Peter Ucker, which I think is a remark. And now these are the two by Ben Jonson, Grundtvig 1, and we've got one coming out of Berlin Pool. I think that's an absolutely stunning piece of work. And then Claire Douglas should be up. Here we are, Claire Douglas.
Yes.
Souvenir from the Anthropocene.
Yeah.
That last one, actually, a very witty painting.
A piece like that was really interesting. I think it caught a lot of people's eyes because it had very kind of humorous, slightly bleak take on post-Brexit Britain. It's set in this fictitious world of Brummington, which is a sort of loose satire on Birmingham. I thought it was a bit mean.
I think we had maybe Black Lives Matter. We had Boris Johnson. I think our own Jacob Rees-Mogg made his way into the painting.
Yeah, so there's definitely a slant, a political slant, on the part of the artist. But even that said, I thought it was an interesting and enjoyable work, even though maybe you don't agree with the artist on what they're trying to say. And I think that actually made for an interesting moment because you're seeing that people are disagreeing, right? Both through the artwork and in front of artworks.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to our live coverage of the 12th of July here from Carrickfergus on the shores of... And we've been talking a lot this morning about how the Ulster Scots migrated to America. And I'm here with Dr. Gavin Hughes, and we're reflecting on all of that. But Gavin, they were a really tough people, weren't they? They had to be for what they went through.
They did. And if anybody is over here to on holiday, I can only sort of urge them to go to the Ulster American Folk Park in Omagh, where you'll actually get a sense of how people were living here before they actually made the move across to America. But yes, they were known subsequently as God's frontiersmen. And there's a reason for that, because they were a hard bunch, they were a very tough bunch. Yeah. And they didn't leave behind people who were any weaker, shall we say, because when Captain Paul Jones of the American raiding fleet during the Revolutionary period, he actually comes to Carrickfergus in the USS Ranger, or the ship the Ranger, and spies HMS Drake in the bay. He decides, right, I'm going to take that. He completely surprises the ship, and they carry the Drake away. So you can basically tell that there's still the links between America and the people around here would have known, Paul Jones, okay, fair enough, he's the fella from such and such a place. And they come round here and they can tell that, it's almost like when Greek meets Greek, It's sort of
Well, look, let's pick up on the story of our Ulster Scots immigrants and their unwavering resilience after their hostile welcome in America.
America was a new world. It had no rail or road networks. The only way of travelling about was by river. Our Ulster Scots had been rejected from Boston, branded as Irish. They protested how they'd fought for King William and country. They moved north to Merrimack River and found winter lodgings in Haverhill.
So some of the things that were established under the 1691 Charter, besides sort of being able to appoint your own government officials in several capacities here in the colonies, one of the other things it did is actually establish a freedom of worship for Christians here in New England. And this sort of angered the Puritans, because this was a Puritan state until that time, so it did cause a rift as much as it brought people together. But exclusively, that religious freedom excluded Catholics, which were named Papists in the 1691 Charter that was given to the Massachusetts Bay Colony.
As the group had proved their religious credentials, offers of land were made to them. But this was in an area known for harsh winters.
The first grant that they got was actually up near Portland, Maine. They were up there in the winter of 1718, but they arrived so late in the year that while a few of them managed to build a couple of huts and shelter, the rest of them had to winter on the boat. They pretty much starved because they didn't have enough supply. And they turned around and went back to the Merrimack River and were on the boat in the Merrimack River at the town of Haverhill. Now, in those days, the town of Haverhill extended right up through Derry and now part of Londonderry. And some of that land had already been granted, but they came up and settled on it anyway, because although it had been granted, it hadn't been settled. Farmers were using it for grazing, and that was about all.
Months of discussion would follow, and eventually the group would own their own lands. A local government was formed, and the community's skill set would prove to be invaluable.
They used the skills that they brought with them from the old country
put them to use here, and then just had the vision to expand upon those skills, take advantage of the new resources, and create a new and prosperous country and a new and enlightened form of government.
Well, in Northern Ireland, there's always quite a lot of talk about what to call our second city, Derry or Londonderry. And in America, they have both. Let's now hear from Dougie Beattie about how that came about.
After such a shaky start, our band of Ulster Scots would find their new home in a place called Nutfield, now known as Londonderry and Derry. With no crops planted, the year of 1719 would be all about survival, and help came from an unlikely source.
The Native Americans that were still here introduced them to the river and Amoskeag Falls, just a short, like 12 miles to our west. And eels were plentiful there, and so they apparently spent most of the first winter eating eels and potatoes.
Grants of land came with conditions, and East Derry would be the centre of the settlers' attention.
The way the settlement went, they were all given home lots of 60 acres. A condition of that was they had to build a house on it within 3 years, and they had to cultivate 3 acres within 4 years. Otherwise, they lost the grant.
There could be no doubt that education and religion travelled with them, as did their skills that would give them the income to develop their communities.
First settlers that came were very pious men and women, obviously very tough men and women, and very skilled men and women. And for the first 100 years in this community, they grew flax. And the flax industry became such that the founding fathers of this nation, and I'm talking George Washington himself and Thomas Jefferson, were very proud to be clad in Londonderry linen, made and milled right here in this town.
Utilising their natural resources, coupled with their tenacity to survive, the Merrimack and Kennebec rivers would become their lifeblood.
The river system, as well as the lakes and ponds that were in the area, were great for bringing in the fishing, as well as when we had dairy, Hood Dairy, which is a huge milk and dairy company that's based out of Boston, started here. Part of the reason they started here was not only the open pasture lands, but the ponds that we had in the wintertime. They would chop it up for ice, and then they would put the ice in barns. And when they harvested the ice, they could then cool the milk and put it on carts that, train cars that went down to Boston every day.
Well, I'm glad to say the sun is very much coming out here in beautiful Carrickfergus. And let's reflect on Carrickfergus. Where did we get the name from?
Well, that's the fascinating thing, is like we've just been hearing, this place has had multiple names depending, we're reflecting its Irish, its Scots and its English traditions, from Knockfergus, Craigfergus, to what's known as Carrickfergus.
And Carrick is really a derivation, if I can get the words out, of the Gaelic for rock, isn't that right?
For rock, that's right. For Rock of Fergus, Fergus, King of Scots, which also, of course, where Scotland gets its name because of Fergus. So it all comes back down to the communities which are living here cheek by jowl. As I say, Knockfergus, Craigfergus and Carrickfergus eventually. And of course, we all know it's just Carrick. If you say, oh, we're going to Carrick, we all know where we're going.
Yes, certainly in Northern Ireland it's known as Carrick. But today, for all of our viewers and listeners,
it is Carrickfergus.
It's Carrickfergus. OK, well, stay tuned with us here on GB News for our live coverage of the 12th of July parades. We're very much looking forward to the start of the parade. It's going to leave the assembly point at 11 a.m. and it'll be with us shortly after that. I hope you're going to stay with us for what promises to be a cacophony of noise, but very...
a brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. There may be some brightness today, but also quite a bit of rain or even showers. These could turn heavy and thundery in the southwest. Looking at the bigger picture, and it's quite a messy story across much of the country. There are a couple of features bringing the focus for some showery rain across northwest Scotland. There's some drizzly rain here, and elsewhere there'll be some showery outbreaks. The heavier showers, though, will be across parts of southwest England, particularly southern Devon and Cornwall. Here, some slow-moving heavy thunderstorms are quite likely through this afternoon. Temperatures are generally going to be near normal or a little bit below average for the time of year, so feeling a bit cool for July, especially because there will be quite a lot of cloud around. Taking a closer look at this evening, and further drizzly rain affecting northwest Scotland, but a drier, perhaps brighter picture further east and south. Also quite a bit of cloud across much of Northern Ireland, a few outbreaks of rain here. Some thicker cloud and rain pushing into eastern parts of Scotland. Further south and in the southwest, we'll start to see those showers clearing away, but there could still be some heavy ones for a time this evening. Overnight then, that thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain will be pushing into some eastern parts. Further west, still some spells of rain to watch out for, and generally it is going to stay pretty cloudy. As a result, though, temperatures generally staying in double figures. Saturday then is going to be a cloudy, damp day across some eastern parts. Some brisk winds here adding to a rather cool feel as some rain feeds its way in from the North Sea. Further west and across central southern parts too, there will be a scattering of showers around, perhaps less likely to see thunder compared to today. Temperatures similar, still a bit disappointing for the time of year. Sunday does look like it will start off a bit brighter, but we could see a bit more cloud building as we go through the day, and there will be some showery outbreaks of rain around, but perhaps as a whole it does look like it will be a slightly drier day than today and tomorrow.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Summer could be a scorcher with your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date. It's totally tax-free, which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hooray!
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to our GB News special to celebrate the 12th of July here in Carrickfergus on the shores of Belfast Lough in Northern Ireland. I'm delighted to say I'm joined on the platform by historian Gavin Hughes, and Dougie Beattie and Charlie Lawson are out and about. We've been discussing the influence of Ulster migration on modern-day America throughout the first hour of the programme, and we were just reflecting, Gavin, before the break on the toughness of the Ulster people. I know people see Ulster people today as pretty tough, but
tough,
my goodness,
yes.
Those immigrants were incredibly tough people.
They were indeed, and you have to try and imagine what kind of life they were going to.
But what they were leaving behind.
Exactly, what they're leaving behind as well. And if the fact they could actually not simply exist but flourish in a new world circumstance, I think says an awful lot for the calibre of basically of them, but perhaps also maybe of the human.
As each colony became established, the opportunity was given to purchase more land. The town of Derry had grown substantially, and they were now expanding. So in 1770, the next generation built a new town.
These very hard-working settlers were originally from Londonderry, New Hampshire, or as they used to call it, Old Nutfield, and many of them arrived in the spring of 1770 and set right to work clearing their lands and building small log cabins. And by the year 1773, they decided it was time to incorporate as a town. They needed to raise taxes. They had so many people who had purchased their lands here in Belfast, but were not living here yet, and they needed a way to collect monies from them to make improvements to the town, like roads, schools, meeting houses. So legend has it that they flipped a coin to choose between either Londonderry or Belfast. Coin flip was made and Belfast won out, and so we were incorporated as Belfast in June 21, 1773.
Belfast, Maine isn't just another twin city. It can trace its DNA to the 1700s. The Ulster men and women that came here were determined to build a town that would not only last, but flourish.
They are still here. You walk around town and I know Gilmores, I know Durhams, I know Stevensons, I know Browns, that there are many, many generations of early Belfastians that are still here.
In such a heavily wooded area, trying to get access for trade would be a problem. While clearing the land, they used all their skills to recycle and start an industry that would not only grow, but become a major employer.
I think the skills come from the old country. I think they come from Belfast, Northern Ireland. You know, when you're busy cutting down the forest to build your homesteads, you suddenly have to do something with the wood, and you use it for yourself for cordwood. But very quickly they realized, their main trade partner in this time period would be Boston. So they immediately set to work building their own ships and building their own wharves to get their goods out to the rest of the world.
Just as its namesake, Belfast, Maine, would build and supply many of the ships that would build a nation.
So before we dropped off there, before that package, we were talking about the tenacity and the stickability of the Ulster people going to America. But what always strikes me when we look at this story, Gavin, is the fact that they took the place names with them. That was about Belfast,
yes.
Maine. You know,
Yes.
They take the city with them almost. You know,
They
there's
do.
a little piece of them there.
They take their territory with them as well. So
Yeah.
they take what was, as you'll see today when you actually go and look at the banners and there's the names of the places, the locals of the lodges. That's exactly the kind of same things being translated across to America. People are taking where they come from and transplanting it to where they're being.
Yeah.
And the same is true also with, so we're taking things like, Londonderry, Derry, Belfast, but they're also taking Andersons, Caldwells, Robinsons, Nelsons. They're taking the names as well. The surnames are going right across. And the fascinating thing is that there's a fellow called William Caldwell from your neck of the woods in Fermanagh, who was served with Rogers Rangers. And then when Rogers was sort of passed on, Caldwell took on Caldwell's Rangers, and they were doing the same job as Rogers' Rangers on the frontier for the British Army there during the War of 1812, which is a war which not many people actually know about. But it's the war which, effectively, as I said earlier, Andrew Jackson was very vitally connected with. Defeated General Ned Pakenham, who was Wellington's actual brother-in-law.
Oh, I didn't know. Of course,
Yes,
Pakenham,
Pakenham, Ned
absolutely,
Pakenham.
yes.
And of course we have, from my own neck of the woods, County Down, Major General Robert Ross, who is the man who burnt down the White House.
Yes, indeed. And that'll be our next foray into all of that. But the atmosphere is certainly building here, and we're looking forward to the parade coming down very. We're now going to see the last of our historic pieces as the parade is nearly with us, and the celebrations are truly underway.
On March 5th, 1729, James MacGregor died of a fever. He was buried in the forest graveyard beside the First Presbyterian Church in Derry. Alongside him are many of those that made that original journey. There is no doubt what he witnessed in the Williamite Wars had a profound effect on him. He was determined to create a place that his community could call home, and their civil liberties and religious freedoms would be commonplace. Their can-do attitude and work ethic is embedded and can still be seen to this very day.
MacGregor, I think with his history, learned to rise above relatively petty things like persecution and so forth. And some call him a peacemaker, but he's also known for every sermon he would have his rifle with him.
They colored outside the lines. They did what they had to do at the time because it answered the need of their community. I love that. It's like the ingenuity and the problem solving is in the DNA of the church. And after talking to various historians, I've got to say that it goes back to Pastor MacGregor and all the ways that he thought outside the box.
They are still here. And they're still working hard, and they've started businesses, and and then you look around Belfast, and you look at the houses, and you look at our beautiful downtown. I mean, this is the result of their hard work in those first years.
Some of them were certainly well educated. James McKean and James Gregg were the two real civic leaders. MacGregor was more of a religious leader.
As journalists, we're all taught to revise and know the facts before we start in a story. And before I came here, I had done just that. I had researched James MacGregor, trying to find out the most I could about the man and his situation. But to really get to know him, you have to come here to New Hampshire. You have to see what he was striving for and for the people that he brought with him. But he also took care of his community. The very documents that were signed as the ships came into Boston clearly stated that none of them were to be sold. But what's most interesting here is that these people, these Ulster Scots, didn't keep their former identity. They weren't Irish Americans. They were quite simply patriots and the first Americans.
Well, I very much hope that you enjoyed taking that journey with us back in time to see the Ulster migration going over to America and setting the scene here for our 12th of July parade today. And Gavin, it is important that we understand the context of what happened with the Glorious Revolution, the migration that happened to America, and the context for what happened in Europe, actually, as well.
Very much so. I mean, it is a period of great upheaval from the long 18th century, right from the Williamite Wars all the way through the Georgian Hanoverian period, which of course deeply affects the relations that Britain and Ireland have with the rest of the world, the colony as they call it, the newest colony of America, then of course the breaking away of America from Britain, and then finding its own identity as well. And of course Orangism has a thread throughout that as well, because of course there are many Orange traditions that are spread via the empire, if you like, through to Canada, and Canada becomes effectively British North America, right up until the mid-Victorian period. So effectively, we see a lot of the things which are happening here translated into America as well. So we do get post-1798 United Irishmen going across to America and actually taking up the cause of fighting against Canada and Britain, if you like, there, whilst you also have British Ulstermen and Irishmen going across there and fighting for Britain in the colonies as well.
And actually, when you think about it, a lot of people from Northern Ireland, just as the Troubles were beginning to take hold in Northern Ireland in the late 1960s, early 1970s, a lot of people went over to Canada and made their new life there as well.
They did. There was a huge amount of, I could say, a flow of Ulster people who went off to Canada. And, of course, Toronto has always had a great connection with the Orange as well.
Yeah.
And Australia and New Zealand have also, and this is of course something you've mentioned before with the Imperial Grand Council, these connections are still very strong and vibrant today.
Yeah, the Orange Council, which of course was meeting, it's a triennial council, isn't it, every 3 years. So it's meeting in Enniskillen in Northern Ireland. So there'll be a lot of visitors around Northern Ireland today taking part in the parade.
There will, and of course there will be tomorrow as well, whenever people go to the 13th in Scarva, for example, and when the Royal Black Preceptory is parading.
Yeah.
So these are all part and parcel of these celebrations we're having today here today.
Good. And I'm watching the youngsters here with their drums. Part of the 12th of July celebrations is the fact that it's entirely a family day, and people love getting out, seeing people perhaps they haven't seen from last year.
It is. It's an annual event where people say, "Oh, I haven't seen sort of Joe from down," and this is the whole thing. Everybody mixes together, but it's been that way for generations.
Generations, absolutely. Well, I think now that we're hoping to go and see where Dougie is. We haven't touched base with him in a while, and one never knows what Dougie and Charlie are getting up to, but I think hopefully we're going to see where they are now at the minute. There he is.
Well, it's not afternoon yet, Arlene. In fact, it won't be long before it is, because the parade has been delayed by about 5 or 10 minutes, simply because the roads being closed with the feeder parades coming in. There is quite literally thousands of people here. If you look down there, that's where the parade is going to start itself. There is thousands and thousands of people here, and the traffic is becoming a nightmare for them. But of course, Charlie has managed to have a chat with people. He's been getting photographs taken, etc., as he does every 12th of July. God help him, we roll him out every 12th just especially for that. Charlie, who have you got?
Well, we have the ladies here. Come here, Lauren, come in here. We have these lovely ladies from Burley Hill House. What is it, a care centre? Home?
Nursing home.
Nursing home, just up the road. And these are the ladies. So do you come every year?
Yes, I'm sure we would.
Good for you. So you take them out every year for the parade?
Depends on where it is. You know, if it's too far away, you can't take them anywhere. But because it's here today.
North Road, so you're all right.
Happiest day.
It's local this year.
Yeah. Nice and local.
Enjoy your day.
Yes.
And we're just waiting on our first lodge coming around, because our ladies from the home, some of them are in the lodge.
Oh, you in the lodge?
Yes. No, not these. Some of our staff.
Oh, brilliant.
So they're all waiting to see them as well.
And they'll be walking?
They'll be walking.
Excellent. Good for you. Nice to meet you all. Anyway, have a good day. You're live on telly.
How on earth do you compete with that, Arlene? I mean, Charlie Lawson and lots of women. I don't know. I got the short straw on this, but there you go. But no. In the next, we can actually hear the band starting to play here. So we would expect in the next few minutes. In fact, if you just look up there, you can see buses coming in behind and Orange Lodge members coming in. So really and truly, Arlene, it won't be that long now till
There's a bit of a traffic jam with bands coming in from all over the province. But yeah, we're waiting to kick off, Arlene.
We'll talk to you as soon as it is.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing and hearing them very, very soon. But let's take a look at some of the bands that we've seen this morning parading around Carrickfergus. There they are. This was the District Lodge, I think, going to the Assembly Field earlier on.
District number 19, which of course is Carrickfergus, which will be leading the parade today. They are basically the District of Honour hosting. They'll be followed by Larne, District number 1. And you'll see the officers and dignitaries of the district there. Noel Jordan, District Master, Deputy District Master Cecil Knox, District Secretary Kenneth Glendinning. And here, of course, they're leading the honour of leading the parade is Whitehead Temperance 968.
That's from Whitehead. That's quite close by.
It is very close by,
yeah.
And that's a very useful thing to say. But a lot of these lodges will come from such a close proximity. In fact, we will see, I think, maybe a bit later, the Kilroot lodges, which actually march from Kilroot. Which is about half a mile away, maybe. We can basically see Kilroot from here. And you'll see some of the brethren will be in these little kind of vans, which you see. Those are the brethren that cannot walk anymore or have difficulty with their mobility.
And of course, the juniors and the Women's Association will be on parade today as well.
That's right. We might get a glimpse of the 4 female lodges, women's lodges. Kilroot 163, I think.
I think this is one of the female lodges coming now.
Very good. And of course, you see the iconography of the banners here. We'll see an awful lot of the images of King William usually on a white horse, although historically inaccurate, of course, Arlene. But I mean,
there they are, very nicely turned out.
Very nicely turned out.
Is that turquoise? I think you would call that turquoise.
It is, isn't it? Sort of
and those ladies are in purple, I think.
It's almost like a Mitchell Byrne purple.
There's always an opportunity with the ladies to have a little bit of colour thrown in, Gavin, unlike with the men. The only place they can throw the colour in is in their ties.
That's absolutely true.
And there's some of the supporting cars as well, because as you say, some of the older people of course want to be involved in the big day but find it difficult obviously because of mobility issues, so it's always a good thing to see those vehicles on the go as well. So that was a little bit earlier when the bands were getting ready and going to the assembly point, and we're hoping that the full parade is going to be standing now. But stay tuned to GB News for all of our 12th of July coverage.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
she could have said storm. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Meghan Markle has reportedly finished filming her new show for Netflix. It aims to celebrate the joys of cooking, gardening, entertaining and friendship.
Yeah, this comes after Prince Harry's Netflix documentary, The Heart of Invictus, failed to hit the right note with viewers missing out on the top 10 in the streaming charts.
So, will this next venture be a success? Well, joining us now is royal commentator Kinsey Schofield.
I know I've talked to the both of you about Meghan Markle potentially running for president, so this feels like a bit of a dud.
to go from Meghan Markle running for president to Meghan Markle's Netflix series about friendship and cooking. So she's wrapped this recent show. They rented a home near hers in Montecito so that as their cooking set. And they're saying that this is really make or break for Harry and Meghan when it comes to their Netflix contract.
Do you think, Kinsey, it's fair to say that Meghan Markle has proved to be commercially a bit of a damp squib? Even in America, her native homeland, she's kind of Oprah without the audience when it comes to the cooking. Also, is she kind of, do you think... They saw her as the golden ticket, didn't they, to unlimited revenue, unlimited audiences, and it just hasn't happened.
Look, I think Meghan is a beautiful woman, and I do think she's talented, but I think how you treat people is incredibly important. And not only was she rumored to have been cruel inside Kensington Palace with several bullying allegations, but here in the States, Archwell Productions, their audio section, their scripted section, they've gone through several employees. And I think it's a reflection on the way that people are treated there. And I think as a viewer, you might get that. You might feel that way, and maybe that is where the appeal has been lost.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Carrickfergus here on the shores of Belfast Lough in Northern Ireland. We're here, of course, for the 12th of July celebrations, and I'm very pleased that I'm joined with Dr. Gavin Hughes. Gavin and I have been talking about migration to America, reflecting on the resilience of the Ulster people, but now we're very much looking forward to seeing some bands, aren't we, Gavin?
And hearing them. Yes,
and hearing them as well, yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to go off now to Dougie, and Dougie, we have begun.
The original royal standard for King William. So
we're seeing here the very beginning of the parade in Carrickfergus coming towards where we are situated here down at Joymount. But Gavin, do we know what that flag is?
Well, it is. That is King William's standard. That is there's a beautiful little kind of engraving of the Dutch ships in the bay here by Carrickfergus, and that is the standard that is being flown from the King William ship. So that is basically what we have. A group is a very convincingly good group of reenactors here at the head of the parade.
And there's, of course, the Irish Wolfhounds there as well.
Yes, which. With a modern-day Royal Irish Regiment. Indeed, unfortunately, the mascot Connery, Brian Boru 10, passed away a few days ago, which is very,
I saw
sad
that.
to see.
That was very sad because he is, as you say, an iconic symbol of the Royal Irish Regiment.
Yes.
My goodness, that's some flag to be carrying.
Isn't it?
Normally it's difficult to carry a flag in the wind, but that is certainly a difficult flag to carry today. It's almost the size of a banner for one man.
For one man to carry, yes. The interesting thing is that you'll notice this in the 17th century, you didn't have a pole that was very, very tall.
Basically, it's quite short.
It's quite short, and you would wave it. And so you could wave the flag very, very, very sort of graphically. And you can see the size of the colours, although I should say the colour really, that it is. And of course, this is to identify, if you're in battle, of course, you know, there are certain things that will identify and bring you to your officers. If they are drum beats, there are fife calls, and of course, there's the standard of the flag itself.
And if that's King William behind, he nearly lost his hat there.
It is blustery. I'll give them that.
Yeah. It is blustery, and so Dougie is at the start of the parade, and we're hoping that the parade's going to join us down here at Joymount very soon. But as you can see from the photographs there, it is quite a blustery day, and people are having to battle with the wind, but at least it's dry, as we always say in Northern Ireland. Could be worse. It could be raining. And so at the head of the parade, who will be at the head of the parade then, Gavin?
Well, at the head will be the district officers. So we will have the...
and which
district
district is leading?
No, sorry, yes, of course. Because effectively, because we're in Carrickfergus district number 19 is leading the parade. And then effectively, if all goes according to plan, it'll be Larne district number 1, then 6 Mile Water district number 10, Antrim district number 13, Staffordshire district number 15, Killade number 17, Randallstown number 22, Cloughfern number 24, and finally, to round it all off, will be Carnmoney district number 25 with 5 lodges. And so the largest on parade today will in fact be Larne district at 19 lodges.
Excellent. And the 12th of July demonstration, the last time it was held in Carrickfergus was in 2012. Normally it's held every 10 years, but because of the COVID delay, that means that they're here now in 2024. And an arch has been built here where we are in Joymount Link Road. It was opened on Wednesday the 3rd of July during the Carrickfergus's Solemn Anniversary Parade, and it's the first orange arch to be built in the town since the 1990s, so it's really good that we can see the arch here. And if you're watching your screen now, you'll see the split screen of people in anticipation waiting for the parade to reach them. Dougie's with the head of the parade, Dougie and Charlie, and it'll take about 15 minutes to get down to us here at Joymount, as we understand
I mean, it is quite a long parade route, although Carrickfergus, the centre of the fortified town, if you like, the walled town, is quite small. It's heading up from Northlands, from the North Road. It'll go all the way through the ancient part of Carrickfergus, come back past us here at Joymount, go on down through Scotch Quarter, turn, come up the new Marine Highway. And it's interesting to note that for anybody who's watching and thinks Carrickfergus has always had this strange kind of separation between the castle and the town, it hasn't. The Marine Highway has completely changed how Carrickfergus actually operated as a town.
Yes.
And then as the parade goes down the Marine Highway, it'll head up towards Woodburn Playing Fields, where the field is in the demonstration field. That's where everybody goes for their refreshments and to hear the speeches at the end of the day, the resolutions.
Yeah. So just to explain for people who aren't familiar with orange parades and orange demonstrations, so they assemble at a certain point, and we're seeing the bands leaving the assembly point now. They parade through a circuitous route to the demonstration field.
That's it, yes.
And then at the demonstration field, what happens?
At the demonstration field, you will hear a series of resolutions, usually for faith and for loyalty and God. And so basically, it all ties in the very principles of the Orange Order itself. And there'll be a particular resolution, which is sometimes, I believe, the Orange Lodge the Grand Orange Lodge will say, today this is going to be a theme of our resolutions on all the stadiums and at every demonstration across the province. The theme might be D-Day and sacrifice and loyalty to the Crown, and that will be the theme reflected across the fields and the demonstrations today.
Yeah. So there's those 3 resolutions, as I understand it, and one of those is quite political because it's about the state.
There is always about the state of the country and how unionism, in particular, feels about that.
Yeah, and but there'll always be a faith element as well.
There is a very strong
Almighty
element,
God,
yes,
and then the third one is to the monarch, of course, and loyalty to King Charles and to the monarch.
Yes, so I mean, all of these we'll see reflected across the province today and elsewhere whenever the 12th is being held.
Yeah, it's the same resolutions throughout the 18 demonstrations which are being held right across Northern Ireland. The largest of the parades taking place today in County Armagh, in Killale, and then throughout all of the other counties in Northern Ireland. Of course, the County Donegal 12th in the Republic of Ireland was held on Saturday in Rusnall, and that's always a very relaxing day.
It is, and you always get the shots of the brethren after the parade dipping their toes in the sea, which
Yes.
is always...
I'm not sure we'll be dipping our toes in the sea
I don't
today.
think that'll be... I know, I quite like the idea of being by the seaside island, but I don't really fancy going anywhere near it.
Belfast Lough is a little bit cool today. I think we'll not venture onto that today. So the parade is winding its way towards us here. I wonder what Baron Carrickfergus would make of all of this.
I wonder
Gavin.
indeed, to be quite honest, and certainly what he might make of the lambegs. I can't hear the lambegs, but we always where you see them. And apparently there will be an awful lot of lambegs in the parade today.
But lambegs is more of a County Armagh phenomenon, is it not?
I always associate the lambeg with
so do
County
I,
Armagh.
actually. Yeah.
But according to what I've been told, there will be a lot of lambegs on display. So we can live in hope.
We live. Well, you can
I live in hope. I live in hope.
I prefer a nice accordion band or silver band, but you live in hope of the lambegs.
I do, because I have to admit, because effectively the lambegs came to Northern Ireland again, right where this town. When Schomberg arrived with his Danish troops, there was effectively a Danish battle drum, which came as a variation of that, which the lambeg is. What we see on parade today is actually a drum which is made in the 1870s, first recorded coming out in the 1870s. And the interesting thing is, of course, these drums are so goat skin and very difficult to make. The craftsmen spend weeks upon weeks making these drums, so they are quite a finite source. And of course, on the 15th of August is Hibernian's Day, which is the opposite to the 12th. But these drums are frequently shared between the Orange and the Hibernians, and certainly they used to be in the past. And frequently what used to happen was they just would change the dressing on the front of the lambeg. Certainly in rural parts of Armagh, you would end up taking your orange lilies off in July and then they would be replaced with green ribbon or whatever it might be in August.
True cross-community work there.
Absolutely.
Well, I think what we seen there was Knocka accordion band. That's something I always like to see. I used to be a member of Rosslea accordion band in County Fermanagh in my youth, and as a result I'm slightly biased towards accordion bands, and they're leading Monkstown True Blues LOL 508 and Green Island Temperance LOL 1552, and the parade has stopped now. Happened, pauses in the parade, and Bennett's Chosen Few, LOL 553, they're with the Ulster Grenadiers Flute Band. We saw them earlier on.
We did indeed, and they're actually one of the oldest lodges in Carrickfergus. Their warrant is supposed to have gone back to about 1798, although the lodge that's currently constituted is a 19th century, early 20th century
So they've just unfurled a new banner on the 24th of May.
That's right.
Of this year, so we'll look forward to seeing that being flown for the first time here in Carrickfergus. And then behind them will come Woodburn Ebenezer Lodge 787.
That's right, followed by the lodge we were talking about earlier, Kilroot True Blues 1544. We've seen those arriving at the start of the day. They will hopefully be followed by John Cross Memorial 1562 and the Sir Henry Inglesby Fife and Drum Band.
That's the accordion band playing there. That's Knocka accordion band, and of course Knocka is the very large escarpment behind Carrickfergus and Green Island.
It is. Again, known as sometimes, earlier maps will just refer to it as the Knocka. So a bit like Carrickfergus, the Knocka has become like sort of, again, part and parcel of local kind of parlance around here. That they know to refer to that as a sort of large mountain range, if you like.
Yeah. I'm not sure to which mountain.
Well, you know, coming from Flat County Down, it's a large hill.
A large hill, and Knocker has a monument on top of it, and it's. I think it's in memory of particularly the RAF up there.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I'm sorry, I've just been distracted as well because as we're sitting here, Doogie and Charlie have just turned up in an American U.S. Forces Jeep, and
they've been running about having a great day in this Jeep, chatting people up and having a great old time whilst we're waiting on this parade arriving. But are we on the move again? Oh, it looks. Oh, I now know why we have been paused. Obviously, somebody has taken on well, and they're waiting for the ambulance to arrive. And here it is, unfortunately. Sometimes.
Yes, it's.
Sometimes this happens, unfortunately.
Hopefully, everybody's okay there.
And I must say, the St John Ambulance always provide tremendous cover for these events right across Northern Ireland when they're taking place. And of course, Gavin, these celebrations aren't just going on in Northern Ireland, but we're also happening on the mainland. Let's cross to Southport, where our reporter Sophie Reaper is.
Well, good morning to you both. We're here in Southport, as you say, where there are hundreds, if not thousands of people gathered here, ready to parade down to the promenade as part of the 12th of July celebrations. People are in costumes. We've seen banners from all over the country, not just from Liverpool or Southport. We've seen some from Stockport, some from Cumbria. I think I can see one from Surrey there. There's people from all over England are here in Southport today. There's also something we've really special that we've seen. We've seen lots of young people dressed as William of Orange and Queen Mary. I think we can show one little girl now dressed as Queen Mary. How fabulous is that outfit? The best dressed of the day, absolutely, my darling. But we have seen hundreds of children dressed like this in both Liverpool and Southport this morning. Thousands of people parading. We're expecting around 3,000 or 4,000 to parade through Southport today as we mark this most special of occasion.
Thank you, Sophie. It's wonderful to see you there. I hope you're having a good day. And we'll come back to Carrickfergus now, where unfortunately the parade has paused for a moment, but it's now underway again, I'm glad to say, and it will be with us shortly, hopefully. So, Gavin, we were talking about the resolutions earlier on, and the fact that we have 3 resolutions normally referred to in the field. The first resolution is on faith, and of course that's around the Protestant faith. The second is on loyalty to His Majesty the King and to the monarchy, and the third is around the state, and that's always quite topical.
It is.
This year it's around the Windsor Framework and the protocol and the Safeguarding the Union document, and that's the point where people want to talk about what's actually going on in the world of politics.
It is. I mean, gives you almost like a direction of where the Orange and the Unionist brethren actually feel. So it's almost like taking a barometer of opinion, if you like. And so people watch the resolution keenly.
And here we are. I think this is the band I was talking about earlier on, the Grenadiers.
Yes, this is the Ulster Grenadiers, a flute band with Bennett's Chosen Few.
And as I said earlier on, they've got a new banner on display today. It was unfurled on the 24th of May. Quite substantial colour party, Gavin.
It is, and you can notice the various styles of many of the bandsmen today. Well, you'll notice they have quite the caps may look quite guardsman-like with the very sort of sloping front peak, but you'll see a lot of snare drums, a lot of this type of band are being on display and parade across the province today. Fife and drum are always very popular. But as you said, we'd see accordion bands. I am not sure we'll see any pipe bands here in Carrickfergus today, but of course they're also very, very popular in Fermanagh and Down.
Yeah, they are indeed. This is a very smart lodge leading the way today.
As Bennett's chosen few.
Well, they may be chosen few, but there's quite a few of them. There's quite a lot of them on display
Yes,
today.
there's quite a few chosen men there, I think.
Yeah,
This is,
exactly.
and then coming up behind.
I think that's Monkstown Old Boys, is it? Oh, no, it's a Scottish band.
It is
actually.
Lark Hall. Is it Lark Hall Purple?
Purple
it is
Heroes.
Purple Heroes. Lark Hall Purple Heroes. That's right. Now, what confuses me a little bit, Arlene, was the fact that I thought that Lark Hall, were actually going to be leading the parade. But I think we noticed what you said about there's a bit of toing and throwing and pushing when we were actually here at Joymount a bit earlier, about a half an hour. Well, obviously they were getting their way into the parades, and again, I don't know if it's true in Fermanagh, but certainly in Armagh, that if you lose your place in the parade, you've lost your place in the parade. You have to go back again.
No mercy is shown.
No mercy is shown, and of course it all depends whether your coach turns up as well. So,
well, that's true. And I'm sure that band was on parade in Glasgow last Saturday, and they would have come over here then for the 12th celebrations today. In the distance, I can hear those drums coming.
You see, you can, can't you? Sort of. I mean, imagine on a battlefield having that kind of noise coming to you. You'd know exactly where your, where your battalions are coming from. You know exactly which divisions are going to where.
Sartorially elegant in his orange glasses.
Isn't he
there.
just? I'm just trying to see if that's Monkstown. Is that Monkstown Old Boys, is it? Or is it Castle Guards?
It's a large drum corps anyway. And there's, of course, some of the juniors on parade.
That will be Woodburn Junior. They're nice to see them out in the sun. Now the sun has come out as well, so.
As I say, it's a wee bit blustery today, but sometimes that's nice if you're parading because it can get very warm. And again, a big lodge on parade there today.
Yes, one of 60 that we expect to see parading through the town. And this looks like it could be the John Cross Memorial.
Yes, and this is a fife and a drum, a very traditional way. And of course, this is what the bands would have looked like many, many years ago. And it's a very traditional way of marching with just the fife and the drum.
It is, right up to the 1950s. This was the way that a lot of rural bands would have, or lodges would have paraded. And actually, whenever you hear it, Arlene, I always think with that single drum and the fife, it actually captures and evokes the spirit of maybe going right back to the way it would have been here in 1823 when the first 12th was held here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the next district coming now. This is Larne district.
Yes, Larne will be definitely the largest district on parade today, 19 lodges. With accompanied, I think, starting off with the Clyde Valley Flute. And now Ralou True Blues, number 55, you will hear. Hopefully they're supposed to have lambegs with them, so we shall...
We'll get you the lambegs.
We'll get you the lambegs, no doubt. So I'm eagerly awaiting the drummers here and the drum corps.
Another one of the female
Yes.
lodges on parade today. Of course, the female lodges in Belfast don't normally parade because it is a very long walk, but in the other demonstrations around Northern Ireland,
It's
you
not
will
unusual.
see. And actually, there's been quite an increase in female lodges, and in Lisbon and County Fermanagh, we've just got a new female junior lodge, which has a lot of members, which is lovely to see. I used to be a junior LOL member myself in Lisnaskea back in the day.
but not in Lisbon or the Hard Rocks.
The Hard Rocks is right.
Yes,
So here comes the lambegs.
And I can't help myself. What a wonderful sight. I have to admit, I really, really enjoy the sound. The beat of the lambeg is something which I think is quite inspiring.
They are
And
huge.
they are huge. And it
absolutely
takes an
huge.
absolute awful amount of skill to actually play them properly.
Yes.
I mean, I have a huge respect for all the lambeg drummers because they can get out the very intricate drummers go on from these vast, giant, beautiful instruments. And hopefully our viewers will know what I mean whenever we say you often hear them before you see them.
But is it difficult to walk just behind a lambeg as opposed to a band? Or is it the drum beat that you're listening to in
It's
the
the drum
band?
beat you're
So-
listening to.
So that's what you're walking to.
You're
in any
walking to
event.
that, yes.
Ah, a silver band. How lovely.
Well, that's
This is
Macramorn.
Macramorn silver band.
Accompanying Macramorn Old Lodge 291. I mean, I must admit, I do like a silver band, and of course, I'm going to have to give a shout out to Banbridge Silver as well. There's again something very traditional about a silver band.
Yes, there is a tradition in the country 12ths of more variety of music, but it's lovely to see the silver band here in Carrickfergus today. We've already had an accordion band go past, and of course the flute bands are very popular. And then in the country areas you have the pipe bands, and of course they're a little slower, and that sometimes
That's
causes
the other thing,
problems.
isn't it? Because that sometimes slows the entire weight of the parade down. I think we've got Ballybowley Pipe Band coming afterwards, I think.
Really? Oh,
I think
great.
so.
And the parade is going to be with us shortly because the police outriders have just arrived to clear the way, or Fochabala as we would say, clear the way.
Yes, any minute now they will be turning around into Joymount.
here they come, and here's that beautiful big flag coming that we talked about earlier on. Can we go across to the pictures from Enjoyment there? Oh, look, there's the pipe band that you were speaking about.
Ballyboli.
Oh, that's quite a good pipe band.
It is. Accompanying Ballyboli number 458. And very smart they look too.
Oh, King William has arrived with us.
Well, yes, if you can hear the round of applause, that's for King William.
So this is the head of parade, which has now reached us at the Enjoyment.
And striking up, of course, a very familiar tune.
A very familiar tune, yeah. We're treating the listeners to the sash. It's a local band from Carrickfergus leading the parade today.
Yes, the
And here we have a very impressive accordion band coming around, Star of Knocker. Followed by some of the female members of the Women's Loyal Association of Orange Women.
It's a very big lodge.
It is, but there's some visitors there, I see, as well.
Yes, that's right.
At the back. And Cheryl Brownlee, who's carrying the purple banner, is actually the new member of the Legislative Assembly here, representing Carrickfergus.
Oh, very good.
So it's a very proud day for her here in Carrickfergus.
And of course, there's a great variety of music today as well. Tomorrow it will be mainly hymn tunes for the Royal Black Preceptory, but
Yes.
today there's going to be a vast amount of from popular tunes to traditional airs.
And this is the Ulster Grenadiers flute band coming again. Well, that was quite the turnout from that lodge there. A little bit of recognition for GB News as
That's
well.
right.
There. They were waving over at us, so it was nice to see. It's always nice to hear the band, which is why we're not chatting when, when they're going past.
It is. It is.
And here they're coming again. A popular band, obviously.
Yes, this is Lark Hall, Purple Heroes.
Oh, this is the Glasgow
yes.
band. Yeah. And they're taking out Kilroot.
True
Lodge.
Blues, that's right.
Afternoon. Sometimes that happens. A local lodge will want to take a band from Glasgow.
Yes,
and
very,
that's
well,
always very nice.
I think is it known as adoption? I think it is.
Oh,
Where-
adoption.
I think it's sometimes referred to as adoption, where they traditionally have a link when they always come across and will play for that particular lodge.
And at Scarva tomorrow there'll be some bands from Glasgow. There's usually Black Skull usually comes, don't they?
They usually do, and I'm not sure what the running order for Scarva will be tomorrow.
There's a good friend of mine from Glasgow. Waving over at me.
Oh.
It really is a time for the family across the United Kingdom to come together and celebrate, isn't it?
It is. Also, an interesting thing is, of course, that the 12th of July is probably almost an accidental birth of the state of England as well under Athelstan, this traditional date for the founding of England. So really the 12th has a number of very significant dates to it. That's just my idea. It all starts in Ulster.
Just gone back to where the parade began here, and we can see that it's processing very well down towards us.
And there'll be a break now where we are until Larne District come through.
There's a man enjoying himself.
And they will continue until the very last district, Carnmoney.
And parading will continue right across Northern Ireland for most of the day. And as we were saying, the Black Preceptory, the brother organisation to the Orange Order, will have their parading days starting now in Scarva tomorrow and then concluding with the last Saturday in August.
That's right.
And that's what we call the marching season.
It is. And I think the very last lodge on parade here today will be Glengormley Temperance as part of Carnmoney.
Here we are, this is Larne District meeting us now. Oh no, it's Monkstown.
Oh, it's Monkstown.
Old Boys.
Yes, there must have been a wee bit of a delay, like we were saying, as
Yes,
occasionally
because-
there
yes,
is,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, it's a windy day, Arlene, so the
It is a
banners
windy day,
they
and,
haven't tied the banners down because they don't want them ripped.
Yes, because the wind could catch them, and sometimes therefore it's difficult to read what's on the banners, but that's for, there we are.
That's just the way of it.
It's another Carrickfergus banner coming through now.
Ah, yes.
That's the fife and drums that we've seen earlier on.
I think that's the John Cross Memorial, I think.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed the sights and sounds of the 12th of July here with us in Carrickfergus today. We certainly have enjoyed being here. I'm delighted to have been here with Dr. Gavin Hughes and indeed with Dougie and with Charlie Lawson. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you're watching. Enjoy the 12th of July. Another large band coming towards us now, Pride Valley. Another big colour party. And colour parties have really become a thing now that, it's not enough to have a really good band, you need to
and it used to be that they might have one or two at the front of a band, but now it seems to be that you get 4, 5, 6 at the front.
On air just to satisfy your desire to see the loud big drum.
Yeah, you hear the drummers call.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, hello, Arlene. Yes, we're down at the seafront, just hanging about, and one old fella met another old fella.
What do you mean? I'm the young fella.
And I'm the money.
So, Sally, why Carrickfergus? What does this bring to the community?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's historic.
Yeah.
After all, this is where King William landed, the castle behind us, and what better place to celebrate what he achieved for our country, because today we're still living with the freedoms that the Glorious Revolution brought to the United Kingdom.
And also, with the other, Sammy was fascinated by Dougie's live pieces that he's been doing for GB News about Massachusetts, etc., etc., and the Williamites and all that. It's fascinating history. I think it's brilliant coming here, getting away. We need to get. Let's not concentrate everything up the road where the cranes are. You've got Carrickfergus and all these places we need to get to every 12th, and I think it's brilliant. I'm enjoying myself immensely.
And you can also see for the community. Look at the crowds that are here lining the roads. People having a great day, enjoying our culture, enjoying a bit of our history, and enjoying all of the bands and the fun that goes with it.
I wouldn't have it be a journalist without asking the question, those freedoms that we enjoy, is that still with the Windsor Framework document?
No, and I mean that's one of the problems. Our freedoms are gradually being eroded by people who don't appreciate just how much it is to have sovereignty over your own country.
That's why it's great for, believe me, for GB News to be doing this, because people in England, you know, they'd switch on and they watch and they go, really? You know what I mean? They don't realise that what a great wee country we have here, Sammy. So fair play to you.
Well, there you go, Arlene. Sorry to bring politics into it, but that's us from the seafront. We'll go up a little bit more very shortly to see who else we can gather up.
So we've just heard there from Sammy Wilson, who's the Member of Parliament for this area. He must be very proud today to see the huge crowds out here watching the 12th of July. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We've run over a little bit because we wanted to keep you here with us in Carrickfergus. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you. I hope you have enjoyed the coverage. Tom and Emily are next. Tom and Emily, what do you have for us today?
Oh, Arlene, thank you so much for bringing us that wonderful parade. It's been brilliant, brilliant, brilliant stuff to see. But my goodness me, what a busy show do we have for you. Of course, we'll be having the very latest on the crossbow suspect. That suspect arrested now in the last couple of hours. Plus, the man who has been found guilty of plotting to kidnap Holly Willoughby, he'll be sentenced.
He will indeed. So stay with us. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back in just a sec.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far and it could be yours. Phil was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox. I just looked at my account and thought, oh my God, yeah, it's true, it's gone into my account. And if I can win it, anybody can win it.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives. Again, down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Friday, the 12th of July. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver. It is actually 12:09, don't want to confuse you.
Deaths in the Channel. 4 more migrants have died after attempting to cross the dangerous 26-mile shipping lane that is the English Channel. We'll have the very latest from France and ask if smashing the gangs is really a viable strategy now to save lives.